Dr. Samantha Reed had always known the Meridian Research Station would be lonely, but she hadn't expected to find family among the stars. The storm came without warning, battering the station's protective shields with waves of crimson lightning unique to this sector of space. Through the reinforced windows, Samantha watched the apocalyptic display, her fingers flying across haptic controls as she adjusted the station's defense parameters. The solitude of deep space research suited her, or so she'd told herself over the past 3 years. A proximity alert shattered her concentration. Something had breached the outer atmosphere of the small moon where her station perched. The object was small, moving erratically, and definitely not natural. Samantha's heart raced as she tracked its descent. It wasn't a meteor, and it certainly wasn't human. The energy signature was unlike anything in her database. The object crashed less than a kilometer from the station. Protocol dictated she should contact Earth Command immediately, but something made her hesitate. Instead, she suited up and ventured out into the alien storm. She found the crash site easily enough, a smoking crater in the moon's rocky surface. But what she discovered inside made her breath catch. A pod, organic in nature, its surface pulsing with failing bioluminescence. And inside, curled up and barely breathing, was a child. The alien infant couldn't have been more than a few years old by human standards. Its skin was pale lavender, with patterns of light dancing beneath the surface like starlight through water. Samantha knew she should be afraid, should follow quarantine protocols, should report this immediately. Instead, she found herself reaching out. The moment she touched the child, a jolt of energy passed between them. The infant's eyes opened, iridescent pools of silver that seemed to hold entire nebulae within them. There was pain there, and fear, but also an intelligence that transcended species. "You're safe now," Samantha whispered, knowing the words meant nothing to the child but hoping the tone would convey her intent. "I've got you." She brought the child back to the station, converting her auxiliary lab into a medical bay. The alien physiology was fascinating, a dual cardiovascular system, bioluminescent cells that seemed to serve as both communication and energy storage, and neural patterns that defied conventional scanning. She named him Orion, after the constellation visible from Earth that had always given her comfort on lonely nights. Over the next few weeks, as she nursed him back to health, she discovered he was a quick learner. He picked up human gestures within days, and began mimicking English words within weeks. But it wasn't all peaceful discovery. Sometimes, in the dead of night, Orion would wake screaming, his skin flashing with patterns of terror. Samantha would hold him, humming old Earth lullabies until the lights beneath his skin settled into gentle waves. She knew she should report him. Knew that every day she kept his existence secret was another violation of her contract, another betrayal of scientific protocol. But she had seen enough of humanity's reaction to the unknown to fear what might happen to him in a government lab. 6 months passed. Orion grew stronger, his ability to communicate improving dramatically. He could now form simple sentences, though his voice had a musical quality that made English sound like an alien symphony. "Why stars cry?" he asked one night, pointing to the continuing storm outside. "It's just electricity, little one," Samantha explained, but Orion shook his head. "No. They mourn. Like my people." His voice carried ancient sadness, and Samantha felt a chill. What had happened to his kind? Why had he been sent away in that pod? The answer came sooner than she expected. One morning, the station's long-range sensors detected a massive object entering the system. Its design was organic, like Orion's pod but on an impossible scale. As it drew closer, Orion's skin began to pulse with complex patterns Samantha had never seen before. "They come," he said, pressing closer to her side. "The hunters. The ones who..." He struggled with the words, his lights flickering in distress. Samantha made her decision then. Protocol, career, even her loyalty to Earth, none of it mattered more than protecting this child who had literally fallen into her care. She began preparations to evacuate the station, knowing that once she took this step, there would be no going back. As she worked, she glanced at Orion, who was watching the approaching ship with a mixture of fear and recognition. She had no idea what she was getting herself into, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty: she would protect him, whatever the cost. "Pack what you can carry," she told him, already plotting courses to the outer colonies where questions weren't asked and credits spoke louder than papers. "We're leaving." Orion turned those stellar eyes to her, his skin glowing with a pattern she had come to recognize as trust. "Together?" Samantha smiled, pushing away her fear of the unknown path ahead. "Together." As they prepared for departure, the storm outside intensified, as if nature itself was conspiring to cover their escape. Samantha knew that from this moment on, her life would never be the same. She had chosen to become the guardian of a child from the stars, and with that choice came responsibilities, and dangers, she could only begin to imagine. 10 years had passed since Samantha Reed made the decision that changed 2 lives forever. The outer colony of New Horizon, with its lawless frontier atmosphere and constantly shifting population, had proved the perfect place to disappear. Their home, a converted mining outpost on the edge of the settlement, offered both privacy and the specialized equipment needed to continue studying Orion's unique biology. Orion had grown into a striking figure, tall and graceful with that same ethereal lavender skin that now pulsed with increasingly complex patterns of light. His abilities had developed far beyond anything Samantha could have imagined. He could manipulate energy fields, communicate with electronic systems through touch, and sense approaching vessels long before they appeared on conventional scanners. But with growth came questions she couldn't answer. "There's something wrong with these readings," Orion said one morning, his fingers trailing across a data terminal. The screen flickered with symbols that weren't part of its programming, a language that seemed to emerge from his very thoughts. "My cellular structure is changing." Samantha examined the readings, concern creasing her brow. The bioluminescent patterns beneath his skin had begun forming new configurations, more intricate than ever before. "Does it hurt?" "No," he replied, his voice carrying that musical resonance that never failed to remind her of his otherworldly origins. "It feels like remembering. But memories that aren't mine." His eyes, still holding those mesmerizing stellar patterns, turned to the stars visible through their viewport. "Something's calling me, Sam." Before she could respond, their security system blared a warning. A ship had dropped out of hyperspace nearby, its signature matching no known configuration. Orion's skin flared with brilliant patterns, and he clutched his head in pain. "They're speaking," he gasped. So many voices, ancient, powerful. His own bioluminescence began pulsing in response, forming patterns that seemed to echo whatever signal was reaching across space. Samantha moved to activate their emergency protocols, but Orion caught her arm. "Wait," he said. "They're not the hunters. They're different. They're like me, but..." He struggled to find the words. "They're what I should have become." The ship drew closer, its organic hull resembling a living constellation. As it approached, Orion's connection to it grew stronger. Images and sensations flooded his mind, a civilization of beings who had evolved beyond physical form, who used light and energy as humans used words and touch. "My people," he whispered, "they were called the Luminarii. They..." His voice caught. "They were guardians of something. Something ancient and powerful." His skin rippled with patterns of distress. But there was a schism. Some wanted to use the power to reshape reality itself. Others fought to protect the natural order. Samantha watched as symbols and equations began appearing on every screen in their home, complex mathematical proofs that seemed to describe the very fabric of spacetime. "The hunters," she said, understanding dawning. "They're the ones who wanted the power." Orion nodded, his light patterns shifting to something darker, more urgent. And I'm not just a child. I'm a key. His eyes met Samantha's, filled with both wonder and fear. They hid the power across multiple dimensions, and somehow, they encoded the map within me. Within my very cells. The revelation hit Samantha like a physical blow. She had thought she was protecting a refugee, but she had been guarding something far more significant, perhaps the most important being in the galaxy. A new signal penetrated their communications array, a message in a language that made the air itself vibrate with power. Orion translated, his voice trembling, "The convergence approaches. The key must choose. Order or chaos. Creation or destruction. The path between stars awaits." Samantha felt the weight of the universe pressing down on them. The peaceful life they had built was ending, transformed by cosmic forces beyond her comprehension. But as she looked at Orion, this remarkable being she had raised, taught, and loved as her own, she saw not just power and destiny, but the same frightened child she had found in that crashed pod. "Whatever you choose," she said firmly, "whatever path you take, you won't walk it alone." Orion's skin brightened with a pattern she recognized as love and gratitude, but before he could respond, their proximity alerts screamed again. Multiple ships were emerging from hyperspace, the hunters had finally found them. "They felt the signal," Orion said, his patterns shifting to emergency readiness. "They know I'm awakening." He turned to Samantha, his expression resolute. "We need to go. Now. But not to run, to find answers." As they rushed to prepare for evacuation, Samantha realized that their years in hiding had been merely a prelude. The real journey, one that would determine the fate of not just Orion, but perhaps all of reality, was just beginning. The stars seemed to pulse in rhythm with Orion's skin as they made their final preparations, as if the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what path its reluctant key would choose. The chase through the asteroid field would have been suicide for any normal pilot, but Samantha Reed hadn't spent a decade raising an energy-manipulating alien without picking up a few tricks. Their small ship, enhanced by Orion's abilities, danced between the massive rocks as 3 hunter vessels pursued them, their organic hulls gleaming with malevolent purpose. 2 more ships dropping out of hyperspace, Orion announced, his skin pulsing with tactical data. He stood behind Samantha's pilot chair, one hand on her shoulder, the other extended toward the ship's power core. Through their connection, he fed extra energy directly into the engines, pushing them beyond their designed limits. "Friendly or hostile?" Samantha asked, executing a tight spiral around a spinning asteroid. "Neither." "There." Orion's patterns shifted to a complex sequence she'd never seen before. "They're observers. The Astral Council. They've come to witness the choice." A blast from the lead hunter ship clipped their shields, sending cascading sparkles of energy across their viewport. Samantha cursed under her breath. They couldn't keep running forever, and their destination was still hours away. "Tell me again what you saw in the vision," she said, hoping to understand more about where they were heading. Orion's voice took on that distant quality it had whenever he accessed the knowledge hidden in his cellular memory. "A temple built in the space between spaces. The Luminarii created it before their transformation, at the very edge of known space. It's where the power was first discovered, and where—" He hesitated, "where the final choice must be made." Another blast rocked the ship. In the distance, a massive purple nebula began to fill their view, the Veil of Souls, according to ancient star charts. Their destination lay somewhere within its swirling clouds. "Incoming transmission," Orion announced. "From the Astral Council." The ship's speakers came alive with a voice that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, translated through Orion's connection. "The time of convergence draws near. All paths lead to the nexus. The key must be allowed to reach the temple." To Samantha's surprise, the hunter ships suddenly pulled back, taking up flanking positions instead of attacking. They were being escorted now, not chased. They can't interfere directly, Orion explained, reading the patterns of energy between the ships. The choice must be made freely, without coercion. It's part of the ancient laws. As they penetrated deeper into the nebula, reality itself seemed to bend around them. Space twisted in impossible ways, and streams of consciousness older than time brushed against their minds. Samantha relied on Orion's guidance more than her instruments, trusting his innate connection to this place. Finally, they saw it, a massive structure floating in the heart of the nebula, its architecture defying conventional geometry. The Temple of Convergence. It shimmered like a mirage, built from what appeared to be solid light and crystallized time. As they docked at an ancient bay that reconfigured itself to match their ship, Samantha felt the weight of history pressing down on them. "Are you ready for this?" she asked Orion. His response was interrupted by a new presence, a being of pure light that materialized in their airlock. Its form was vaguely humanoid, but constantly shifting, composed of the same bioluminescent energy that flowed beneath Orion's skin. "Welcome, Key-bearer," the being's thoughts resonated in their minds. "I am Archive, custodian of this temple. The convergence awaits." Orion's patterns swirled with recognition. "You're one of the original luminarii. Before the transformation." "Indeed. I remained in physical form to guide the next key-bearer, when the time came." Archive turned its attention to Samantha. "But you have already had a guide, it seems. A human guardian. Unexpected, but perhaps, necessary." They followed Archive through corridors that seemed to extend into infinity, passing chambers where entire galaxies spun in miniature. The temple was a nexus of all possible realities, Archive explained, where the fundamental forces of creation had first been harnessed by the luminarii. "The power you protect," Samantha said, "what exactly is it?" "The ability to rewrite the basic code of existence," Archive answered. "To reshape reality according to will alone. The hunters believe it should be used to enforce their vision of perfect order. Others would use it to unleash pure chaos." They entered a vast central chamber where streams of pure possibility flowed like rivers of light. At its center floated a geometric shape that hurt Samantha's eyes to look at, an object that existed in more dimensions than her mind could process. "The Nexus Core," Archive announced. "The source of all potential, and the focus of your final choice, Key-bearer." Orion approached the core, his skin beginning to resonate with its frequencies. The patterns of light beneath his skin aligned with the geometric impossibility before them, and Samantha realized that his very DNA had been engineered to interact with this ancient power. But as the chamber filled with representatives from both the Astral Council and the Hunters, all watching in tense anticipation, Samantha saw something in Orion's stellar eyes that gave her hope, not the weight of destiny, but the light of understanding. The choice that would determine the fate of reality itself was about to be made, and Samantha could only pray she had taught Orion enough about humanity's greatest strength, the wisdom to know when not to use power, even when you had it. The Temple of Convergence hummed with ancient power as Orion stood before the Nexus Core, its multidimensional geometries reflecting in his stellar eyes. Around them, the assembled beings waited in tense silence, the Hunter ship's commanders with their organic armor pulsing in barely contained anticipation, the Astral Council's observers shimming with dispassionate attention, and Archive's form of pure light maintaining its patient vigil. Samantha watched as patterns of light cascaded beneath Orion's skin, matching the core's impossible rhythms. In that moment, he seemed both the child she had raised and something far more ancient and powerful. His voice, when he spoke, carried harmonics that made reality itself vibrate in sympathy. "I understand now," he said, reaching out toward the core but not touching it. "Why they chose Earth, chose humanity to hide me." His eyes met Samantha's. "They knew what your species could teach me." The Hunter commander stepped forward, his crystalline armor catching the light. "The power must be claimed, Key-bearer. Reality demands order. Structure. Purpose. With the core's power, we can eliminate chaos from existence itself. Create perfect harmony. Perfect stagnation, you mean, one of the Astral Council observers countered, its form rippling with disapproval. The universe requires balance. That is why the choice must be made freely, by one who understands both order and chaos. Orion's skin pulsed with complex equations as he accessed more of the knowledge encoded in his cells. The original Luminarii discovered this power by accident, he said. They found the underlying code of reality itself, the ability to rewrite the rules of existence. But they couldn't agree on how to use it. And in their conflict, they nearly destroyed everything, Archive added, its light dimming with ancient sorrow. The schism that followed split our species into those who transcended physical form to become watchers, and those who remained to enforce their vision of order. Samantha stepped closer to Orion, despite the tension radiating from the assembled beings. Whatever you decide, she said softly, make sure it's your choice, not what anyone else demands of you. A smile touched Orion's lips, and his skin glowed with the pattern she recognized as love. That's exactly what they hoped I would learn from humanity. The power of genuine choice. Of free will. He turned back to the core, and his voice gained strength. I've seen how humans handle power. They make mistakes, terrible ones sometimes. But they also learn from them. They understand something that immortal beings often forget, that true growth comes from having the freedom to choose, even to choose wrongly. The Hunter Commander's armor flared with warning patterns. You would leave reality vulnerable to chaos? To random chance? No, Orion replied. I choose something else entirely. His hands began to move in complex patterns, interacting with the core's energy in ways that made Samantha's eyes water. The power shouldn't belong to anyone, not hunters, not watchers, not even a chosen key-bearer. The core's geometry began to shift, its impossible angles realigning under Orion's influence. But instead of claiming its power, he was doing something else, something that made both the hunters and the Astral Council surge forward in alarm. Stop, the Hunter Commander ordered. The power must be controlled. No, Orion said calmly. It must be shared. The core's energy began to flow outward, not in a destructive wave, but in countless tiny streams, spreading throughout the temple and beyond. Samantha gasped as she felt something change in the very fabric of reality, not a rewriting, but an opening. What have you done? Archive asked, its form flickering with what might have been wonder. I'm giving the power back to life itself, Orion explained, his skin pulsing with complex implementation protocols. Not concentrated in one place or one being, but distributed throughout all conscious species, in tiny, manageable fragments. Everyone gets a small voice in the universe's story, but no one gets to be the sole author. The Hunter Commander's armor crackled with rage. You've destroyed our chance at perfect order. I've guaranteed that life will continue to grow, to evolve, to surprise us, Orion countered. Each species, each individual, will have a tiny ability to influence reality, through choice, through will, through imagination. But never enough to dominate or control the whole. Samantha felt it then, a subtle shift in her awareness, a tiny but undeniable connection to the fabric of existence itself. Around them, the temple's very structure was changing, becoming less a repository of power and more a nexus of connections, linking all sentient life in a web of shared potential. The human concept of democracy, Orion said softly, applied to reality itself. No kings, no ultimate authorities, just the collective will of all conscious beings, each with a small but significant voice. Archive's form brightened with understanding. You found a third path. Neither perfect order nor pure chaos, but collaborative creation. The Astral Council observers pulsed with approval, while the hunters' organic ships began to power down, their purpose now obsolete. The power they had sought to control was already spreading, diluting itself safely among all living things. But Samantha noticed something else. Orion was beginning to fade, his physical form becoming translucent as the process continued. "What's happening to you?" she asked, fear gripping her heart. His smile was both sad and triumphant. To implement this change, to rewrite reality's deepest codes, it requires a sacrifice. A final key to unlock the new paradigm. Samantha reached for him, her heart breaking. "No, there has to be another way." As Orion's form continued to fade, Samantha refused to let go of his increasingly translucent hand. The Temple of Convergence thrummed with transformative energy, reality itself being rewritten around them, but all she could focus on was the being she had raised from childhood slowly dissolving before her eyes. "The sacrifice is necessary," Archive said gently, its light dimming in sympathy. To fundamentally change the nature of reality requires more than just power, it requires a bridge, a consciousness that understands both the old way and the new. "But he's not just some key or bridge," Samantha protested, her voice breaking. "He's my son." Orion's stellar eyes met hers, still bright despite his fading form. "Everything you taught me about humanity, about love, choice, sacrifice, the beauty of imperfection, it led to this moment. You showed me that the greatest power isn't in controlling reality, but in helping it grow." The Hunter Commander, his organic armor now dormant without the promise of ultimate power, stepped forward. "You've changed everything. The universe will never know the perfection we sought." "No," Orion agreed, his voice gaining an ethereal quality as his transformation continued. "It will know something better. It will know life. Real life, with all its chaos and beauty and unexpected moments of grace." His skin pulsed with what Samantha recognized as joy. "Look, it's already beginning." Throughout the temple, streams of possibility were taking new forms. The rigid geometric patterns of the ancient luminarii architecture were softening, becoming more organic, more alive. The assembled beings, hunters, observers, even Archive, were changing too, their forms becoming less absolute, more adaptable. "The power isn't gone," Orion explained, now barely more than a pattern of light himself. "It's everywhere. In every choice, every act of creation, every moment of connection between conscious beings. Humanity's greatest gift to the universe, the understanding that true power comes not from control, but from letting go." Samantha felt it then, not just the small connection to reality's fabric that everyone now shared, but something deeper. The patterns of light that had always flowed beneath Orion's skin were spreading, not dissolving. They were becoming part of the universe's new foundation, and through her connection to him, she could feel every pulse, every ripple. "You're not dying," she realized, wonder replacing despair. "You're becoming part of everything." Orion's smile was like starlight. "And everything is becoming part of me." The Luminarii thought they needed a key to unlock ultimate power, but what they really needed was a heart to teach the universe how to love. The transformation accelerated. Orion's physical form dissolved completely into pure light, but instead of disappearing, it expanded. The patterns of his consciousness merged with the new fabric of reality, spreading through the temple and beyond, touching every corner of existence with the wisdom he had gained from both his alien heritage and his human upbringing. Archive's form brightened with understanding. This was the true purpose all along. Not to choose between order and chaos, but to teach reality itself how to grow, to change, to love. The hunter ships began to power up, but not with their former militant purpose. Their organic hulls pulsed with new patterns, exploration, discovery, protection. "We will adapt," their commander declared. Perhaps perfection isn't what we thought it was." The Astral Council observers shimmered with approval. The experiment was successful. Humanity's influence has created a new path, one we never imagined possible. Samantha stood in the transformed temple, tears flowing freely down her face. She could feel Orion everywhere now, in the starlight, in the space between atoms, in the very thoughts and dreams of all conscious beings. He was gone as a single entity, but present in every moment of creation and connection throughout the universe. "I'll miss you," she whispered to the cosmos that her son had become. The air around her stirred, and for a moment, she saw him clearly, not as the child she had found, or the young being he had become, but as pure potential made manifest. His voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "I'm not gone, Sam. I'm just bigger now. Every time someone creates something new, every time they choose love over fear, every time they see the beauty in imperfection, that's me. That's us. That's what we built together." The temple of convergence was changing around them, becoming a nexus not of power, but of possibility. The assembled beings began to depart, transformed by what they had witnessed, spreading the news of reality's evolution to all corners of existence. Archive approached Samantha, its light now containing hints of the same stellar patterns that had marked Orion. "You are welcome to stay, guardian of the heart. The temple will remain as a reminder and a meeting place for all who seek to understand the new way." Samantha looked out at the transformed universe, feeling the echoes of Orion in every pulse of starlight, every moment of creation. She had come to this place fearing she would lose everything. Instead, she had helped her son give everything to everyone. "No," she said, smiling through her tears. "My work here is done. There are others out there who need to learn what humanity has to teach. About love. About choice. About the power of letting go." She felt Orion's presence surge in agreement. "Besides, I have a feeling he'll always know where to find me." As she walked back to her ship, the universe felt different, not perfect, not ordered, but alive in a way it had never been before. In teaching Orion about humanity, she had helped him teach the cosmos about love. And in the end, that was the greatest power of all.